In modern centerfire ammunition, there are two types of primer used, Berdan and Boxer. Boxer primers are the more familiar variety here in the United States and are very practical to reload, whereas Berdan primers aren't very practical to reload and are more common in Europe. Berdan primers get their name from their inventor, Colonel Hiram Berdan, an American Army officer. Likewise, Boxer primers are named after their inventor, Colonel Edward Boxer, a British Army officer. There is a problem with this last bit of information, though. Edward Boxer didn't invent the Boxer primer. But how can that be? Boxer even filed patents for his primer in both England and the United States. Let's take a look at Boxer's patent since it is available online. The patent is actually for a cartridge, but to be fair, this includes a primer design. Looking closely, we can see the anvil legs extend over the lip of the primer cup. We can also see the anvil has a cross section somewhat like an egg. This isn't quite what we know as a Boxer primer, which has more of a triangular cross section and doesn't extend over the lip of the primer cup. I would also like to point out that this cartridge design doesn't have the sort of primer pocket we are familiar with either. So, who is responsible for our modern primer design? That would be General Stephen Vincent Benet, an American Army officer. Benet ended his military career as the Army's Chief of Ordnance, but before that he was the commander of Frankfurt Arsenal. At Frankfurt, he was responsible for a previous design of a primer and casing, in which the case was primed internally, with the primer being loaded in through the case mouth and crimped in place. This casing wasn't reloadable and saw use for many years in 45-70 and 45 long Colt ammunition. We can say Benet is the one who deserves credit for the so-called Boxer primer because of an 1866 technical drawing from Frankfurt Arsenal showing a new external primer design. Looks familiar, doesn't it? And we can rest assured this isn't a copy of Boxer's work because Benet's work is dated January 1866, while Boxer's patents were filed October 1866 in England and June 1869 in the United States. Now, the elephant in the room. Why does Boxer get credit for something he didn't invent? The blame lies with Frankfurt Arsenal. In 1873, the Arsenal published a memo on cartridge technology. The 1866 Benet design was copied into this document, but was mislabeled as Boxer, English. Combine this with the fact that Benet's design was never patented because it was meant to be an inexpensive innovation for government use, and we see that any attempt to correct the record would have been pointless for the government. I should also mention that in 1873, Benet was no longer the commander of Frankfurt Arsenal, as he had been promoted to assistant to the Chief of Ordnance, so there is no reason to expect him to catch this error as well. The result is that this misinformation has been cemented in place. What should we call this primer then? We could call it a Benet primer, but that might cause confusion with Benet's internal primer. We could call it a Frankfurt primer, since that is where it was designed. We could also keep calling it a Boxer primer because this style of primer can be punched out, like a Boxer, with a lowercase b. Whatever we do, I think we should take care not to attribute this design to Edward Boxer. What we are left with is the fact that both styles of primer still used in centerfire ammunition today were invented by Americans. Sorry, Britain, but us Yanks will be holding onto our arms and ammunition, like we always have.